Okay, so I'm one to cover a subject and forgive the noise. I'm planning on actually eventually building some kind of studio to cover topics and have a little bit of soundproofing and just get away from noise in general. Um, but this topic seems like it's important, so we're going to cover it. A lot of people out in the world right now are unemployed. Now, being unemployed means that you're not working, and you're registered in the system as being unemployed. There's some people that are not employed, don't file for unemployment, and those people are never part of the system that keeps track of that kind of thing. So, but they do exist, and that number's always present. Um, so, just want to share a frustration of mine. I am looking for work. I am actively looking for work. I have um, uploaded resumes using several apps, and for everybody out there that is unemployed and is looking for work because they have a feeling much like myself that even though the company that I'm affiliated with or was affiliated with prior to unemployment says that they're going to hire back eventually, they're not hiring. They have laid off more people, and so I may not be able to go back to work for that company for quite some time. And really, when I talk about that company, I'm talking about a company that my company that I worked for contracts with, which puts me not in the first running of layoffs or the second running of layoffs, but the third running of layoffs that might get hired back, which were, of course, the first running of layoffs um, before they laid off their own people. Um, so, if you have not been looking, or you've been looking and may not be aware of this, I'm going to share a serious issue that has developed. There are companies that are listed as hiring. They will send you web links for interviews, which is not an uncommon practice. I actually prefer them sometimes to driving somewhere for a maybe job. Uh, that way you can just do your interview and continue with what you're doing. But more times than not, here recently, I have been getting the webinar automatically propagate to my calendar on my device as soon as I open an email from one of these said companies. Um, the said company has contact information. So what do? The first thing I'm going to do when I get contact information is try to contact the individual contacting me. Now, this in itself can expose you to a lot of spam that you don't want. Um, but you have to vent this stuff somehow because, honestly, um, people like Career Builder and ZipRecruiter, and I'm going to single your companies out because I have gotten this happen from both. A unvetted, unverified employer is allowed to just get your information and send you a phishing email. Now they're going to send you a webinar or whatever, and a time and a date and all that stuff. Problem is that when I got the information, there was no verifiable company information. The phone number went to a generic, this person's not available type, leave a message setup, which a company with any respectful organization is not going to have that as their contact information. And third, automatically propagating to my calendar an appointment for a Zoom interview. Okay, so to verify the appointment, I want to contact with any questions that I may have to that number, right? So before I click a link, I am absolutely going to try to call the individual. Try to call the individual. It rings one time. If that, automatically goes to a voicemail that is generic, has no information that is helpful and whatsoever, and wants you to leave a message. I don't leave a message. I regret making the phone call. So, needless to say, I am a self-aware security person. I don't have credentials and certifications. I may have the qualifications, but they're worthless in a work environment, evidently. I've worked in telecommunications, amongst other things. I would have liked to have been a NOC, which is a network analyst, or a security analyst of some kind, or a telemetry person. Never went to school for those. Regardless of what I know, I do not have the certifications. You may be qualified but not be certified, and you're just not going to get those jobs if you don't have certification. So that's not the kind of job I was applying for. I was applying for something that's also in my wheelhouse. I have extensive automotive and power sports experience, and I have extensive residential and commercial construction experience, and variations of all kinds of experiences that have cross-platformed on multiple tiers. So I'm at the age I want to find one job, one career, just one, that will satisfy my desire to use my mind, along with possibly giving me a little bit of activity so that I won't get fat and lazy. I do not want the kind of job that pays very little money, expects 2 or 3 job positions to be fulfilled while demeaning me in the process. I'm an adult. I want to be treated like an adult, not treated like a child working their first job. And at the same token, I don't want to be paid like a child taking on their first job while performing managerial or one of those fancy engineer titles that mean nothing. The vast amount of titling that's out there for jobs makes it almost impossible to search for the kind of job that I used to perform. I was one of those people that never got a license for being an electrician because they didn't want you to have a license as an electrician. When I worked in major big cities putting in DC battery power systems and backups and rectifiers and VDFBs and fuse bays and alarm systems, and working with DOS and working with Linux and working with Unix and all the different things that I worked with, while in addition running my own laptops on multiple operating systems and doing multiple things. I I am quite capable of doing a multitude of things. Um, Evidently, since I can't put my job description in a nice little neat box these days, I have trouble finding work. And when people find my resume, they probably are quite um, bewildered, would be the word, on what to do with me. To give you an idea, I took a job that paid less money than I normally make, running a piece of equipment that I had never touched before. Forgive the noise, I'm outdoors. Running a very large piece of equipment, a very expensive piece of equipment that I had never run before, and the managerial people in that place decided to let the guy that doesn't officially yet work for the company run that piece of very expensive equipment and handle most of the functions related with that piece of equipment um, after a week. So evidently I'm not stupid. Um, and they needed somebody to run it. Then COVID-19 happened, and I was 2, maybe 3 days from potentially being hired on full time, according to people at that facility. So, uh, not even really in my wheelhouse, but I did the job, and I did it well, and I wanted to continue doing the job, mainly because it was 4 minutes from my house. That's really hard to get, 4 minutes from your house, 12 if there was some kind of delay, uh, and working hours that had me off so that I could do a little bit of business during business hours. So all great things, being able to do business hours, um, being able to work a full shift, being able to work full time, and feeling fulfilled at the end of the day. Now, I came home filthy. I worked in the oil field. I believe that the latest job I had qualified me for being a roughneck if you considered the amount of grime and dirt that I ended up with on my clothes by the end of the day. And I'm smiling because I don't mind that. Um, I'm not completely limited in what I can do, but I have some limitations because I lost some of the mobility in my wrist. It works, but it doesn't work the way I used to. And I used to be a very skilled carpenter, which it kind of brings me down that I can't do the kind of work that I used to do. Um, I have gotten to a point that being the manager of a department that's going to have to listen to the endless onslaught of unsatisfied people, dissatisfied people, rightly or arrogantly so. You know, some people they just think that they should be able to complain about anything and everything and get what they want and not have to pay for it in the modern society. And my grandparents probably would have been really, really upset somebody like that come into their establishment. My dad probably wouldn't have put up with it at all. And this day and age, I believe it's unrealistic and unsustainable to allow your clientele to come into your place of business and run all over you. Um, what you end up with is big companies continue to have acceptable losses that they'll just take for any reason on returning things and items and stuff. Um, and small businesses get choked out. Um, and I have seen a few businesses that don't exist anymore for that very reason. They choked out because they just could not deal with the social media onslaught um, and bad press that a company gets for saying, just because you went and took your item and done something that definitely shouldn't have been done with it, does not entitle you to you know free and absolute graciousness and just give you a new $40,000 vehicle because you don't know how to drive. Um, owner's manual says don't do that. You know, uh, but yet the people do it. Um, give you an example. Auto four-wheel drive is not supposed to be on hard packed surfaces in any vehicle, and the owner's manuals say that. But if you're in warranty, and even though the computer will show that you ran that vehicle in four-wheel drive, auto, hard packed surfaces, driving down the interstate, you know, oh, I want it in case it rains. Yeah, it's not designed for that. Um, but yet, some companies, in the process of choking out the dealerships and choking out, their franchisees, so that eventually it'll all be kiosk, I think, um, are making stipulations that the dealers have to deal with it or else. It's an example. And I actually had worked for a dealership that was decent. They did everything they could to help people out. They didn't try to avoid anything, and they did everything they could. But they're a small dealership, and they can only maintain that for so long. It's just a fact. A small business can't do it without the support of the franchise that's making the rules and controlling every aspect of their business now. When they can schedule, when they can't schedule, things of that nature. Um, Regardless, I digress. Um, I'm trying to cover one topic and have veered off significantly into another. My apologies. um, so, people that have worked real jobs and have been part of the working class and now find themselves not among the working and among the unemployed are highly subject to unvetted um, entities that are saying that they're hiring, and they are using unethical practices to mine for information. Um, would be the primary reason I could think of. Um, I have had more fraudulent um, interview offers that I could not vet, that I could not confirm or verify that the company existed, or I could not get a hold of anybody at the company to verify that the email came from them. Um, and I suggest that everybody that's looking for a job do that very thing right now, because you're not going to be able to keep your identity if you don't. Um, I honestly believe that identity theft through hiring services are going to be on a rise. And I am trying to express my concern and share with people that they need to vet this kind of stuff themselves. Um, and I would say that people need to ask um, hiring companies or apps to vet their hiring companies. Um, if they don't have a valid company name, a valid company phone number, and have it available for the person after their application has been reviewed so that they can review that information themselves and call those companies themselves. Um, you know, they need that availability to do that once a company has shown interest in their resume. Um, or simply make a link inside the app that says, I would like their information verified. They have contacted me. So that you can verify their information. And also have a reason why, where you can tell the app service that um, I was contacted by an individual without a company name, without a company phone number, that had a unverifiable voicemail, etc., etc. Be able to click off the boxes of why you think these people aren't legit and why you would like to vet them before going through an interview. And I really believe that you need to do that. Meanwhile, I will continue my job search. Um, Try to find that last full-time job that will keep my mind and my body sharp so that I can continue on um, being productive, working at making my country a productive place, and share my knowledge with future generations so that they can continue to make our country, a great place. And if you're not from the United States, you should feel the same about your country. Plain and simple. The only way we recover and survive from bad things is if we work together. We have to work together. So I need to find something to be productive, and I am trying, but there's not a lot out there that is good, and I think companies are intentionally trying to hire at lesser pay rates. And I understand that companies may not be doing the best either, but some of us can't pay our bills if we don't get a pay that's, you know, commensurates the the amount of living expenses that people incur these days. So we need to acknowledge that either living expenses need to be drastically reduced. Um, you know, house payments, car payments, food, and of course, inside the house payments, rent for anybody that's renting. Um, all these things have to be reduced if we're going to reduce the amount of money that people are going to make. You know, everybody gives a little. We get back to being productive. We slowly increment everything back up. I'm okay with that, as long as I'm not paying out full price and getting paid less than what I deserve. So, people, we need to get real. We need to be productive. And I'm saying get off of unemployment if you can and go back to work if you can. And I am wanting to be one of those people, get back to work if I can. But I don't want to work for dollars less an hour than what I was making 2 months ago. It's not realistic. I can't afford to do that. So, if anybody is in the upstate South Carolina region that's looking for an employee and somebody happens upon this particular video and shares it with you, things I'm willing to do, bring every bit of my experience and my knowledge and my mental collaborations of those experiences and knowledge implemented, or just practical applications of thought, uh, to a business with the serious um, desire to make that business better. And I want to make a business better while bettering myself and bettering my fellow people that are going to work. Um, and I want to work in a respectful environment where everybody is respectful. And people don't treat people like a child, and they don't just assume that because you've taken a position that may not be as important as theirs, that you have nothing to bring or offer to the table. At the same token, if you want everything I've got and you want to put me into a leader or management position, uh, you know, step up your A game and pay a person uh, for the experience they are going to bring to your company. And this beard and the beard that I had, all optional. I can shave. Normally, I only grow this stuff for No Shave November and do a little bit of something for you know, people with cancer, even if it's just entertain. Um, but you know, we need to be productive. We need to make things productive. And uh, man, I miss the days of walking into a place and saying, "I'd like to have a job." And they say, "What can you do?" And you tell them what you can do, and then they say, "Well, I've got a job or I don't got a job." And that was it, you know. And I find it kind of disturbing that in this modern society, I have to be vetted, but the company I'm going to work for doesn't have to be vetted. You know, just because they're a company doesn't mean they're a good company. And I have definitely seen good companies and bad companies. And, you know, I can identify them pretty quick. Um, and really, work history and everything else really just boils down to this: is the person and the company a good match? So do the homework, vet your company. Companies, you know what you're looking for. And both of you need to make sure that you're not getting fished by the application services out there that are not vetting uh, the information being given. Simple phone call will verify most things. Find out if the company's real, find out if the person's real. Um, and email's great, but sometimes the personal touch will get you a little bit more than what you see on paper. And we need to be looking out for scammers, because they're out there trying to take advantage of people that are already down. Let's get back to work.